welcome back to Skirts and Words. I remember what our podcast is called today. I am Denise Kauai. I am the author of all kinds of books. We have a guest this week, Corie Dow-Kramer, who is a child advocacy consultant. Thank you. She does all kinds of work in our community, making sure that kids and their families are taken care of and represented fairly, and it's pretty awesome.
Well, thank you.
And then we are back at the Vault bookstore. That is Jennifer's.
Thank you for coming back and checking us out. We are in beautiful Vault Books and Brew in our 1912 Old Bank building. We apologize for the background noise. They are cleaning the sidewalks to have the town look beautiful and clean, so there's a little bit of noise in the background, so we apologize for that. But I find that our repartee is so witty that eventually you won't even notice.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
It's true.
The noise will just fade
It'll
away.
fade away into the soothing, sultry sounds of our voices.
That's right.
It's very literate of you. Soothing, sultry sounds. I can't even say it.
I read a lot.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I'm thinking of owning a bookstore.
You know, you might be good at that.
Yeah.
You should think about that.
I will. I will take it under consideration.
So we, some of us have had kind of a hard week, and so we are appropriately, we have been reading White Houses by Amy Bloom, and if you haven't read it, it's a really interesting fictional telling of Eleanor Roosevelt and her good friend Hick. It was way different than I was expecting it to be when I read it, but I ended up loving it in the end. And so we're going to kind of talk about how we each have our personal lives, and then we have our public lives, and then we use books to escape from all of it. At least I do. I won't speak for you ladies. So, yeah. What do you think?
Well, I ordered it because all they had to do was mention Eleanor Roosevelt, and I'm like, I am down for that because I do love me some Eleanor. What I thought was surprising was that I ended up liking her girlfriend. I think they referred to each other as girlfriend.
Yeah.
In there at once. I ended up really liking her almost more than Eleanor. She came from a rough background. She had to grow up extremely quickly. This is Lorena Hickok. Hick is what they refer to her in the book as. And I really responded to how she, at 14, was completely on her own. She was an adult. She ran off and joined the circus,
Yeah.
which is
Literally.
And made her way in the world, went to college, got a job, and was really one of the first female beat reporters of that time. And I found that inspiring. I have been an adult for an extremely long time, from the time I was a kid. Very quickly, I had to grow up, and I respond to that. You know what? You have to get things done, and you have to succeed, and so I responded to that. Of course, I love Eleanor and how intelligent she was, and I like that the more sickly that Franklin got. I can call him Franklin because we're close personal friends.
Right.
Yeah. So as he got sicker with polio and from being in a wheelchair and stuff, he put her out in the public eye more, and surprisingly, she really responded to that, and she did really well with that. And I liked that, but I don't know, it's a fictional retelling, but she was kind of a Debbie Downer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I always think of Eleanor Roosevelt, I don't know her quite well enough to call her just by her first name,
Oh,
as
I'm
being
sorry.
very inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody knows quotes, and
Mm-hmm.
and although I would still say that, I didn't finish the book yet because I kind of got sidetracked by life and by Hick's life. It was a little unsettling to me, and I need to take a break from it. but there were just several points where it's just sort of her need to just be sort of matter of fact, Eleanor's need to just be like, well, that's just how it is, and moving on, was a little depressing. On the other hand, there were points where Hick described Franklin Roosevelt, because I just went back in the wrong generation, and he was almost gleeful and funny. So it was just a different.
So do you feel like you were a little bit disappointed in the actual Eleanor as opposed to her public persona?
I think I actually was. And I get caught when I read things, any accounts of real people, and especially if they've been fictionalized, I will get lost in the details and then go down those little rabbit trails on Google to like dig out what's the real, what's, and the things I started reading as I went down the rabbit hole, which also then impacts how quickly I read a book. She was pretty staid in many ways. Like, just very pragmatic and practical and not on a stage giving a speech, which I think, having grown up in a world where there's Eleanor Roosevelt quotes everywhere you look, I somehow envisioned her as this larger than life, I'm going to go inspire the world. And she is inspiring, but she was somebody's wife and mother and girlfriend and just a real person in her private life. And real people aren't always ready with the one-liner inspiration.
Yeah. Well, and I psychoanalyze everything. Like, I can't help it. And so for me, reading all of those, behind the scenes things, I really took it as like, it takes so much energy to be who the public wants you to be. Then at the end of the day, you just like shut down. And so a lot of times in the books, it's like Eleanor's like, be in the room with me, but don't talk to me. Don't touch me.
I can appreciate that. A lot.
Yeah, and I think that was really relatable to me because I try real hard to be positive and motivating and all that stuff, and sometimes at the end of the day, I just want to take a nap.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was interesting, so I studied Eleanor Roosevelt just because I thought that she was really inspiring, and I remember reading a book about her when I was probably a senior in high school, and it was about how Franklin Roosevelt was having affairs with Lucy Mercer and Missy Hand, and I was just horrified, like, Eleanor, like, you need to leave him, and how could you, I don't know, like, be a doormat, and you should have stood up and been like, no, why don't you leave him? And I'm 36 now, and I understand, I was so black and white at that point, and now reading that, I understand also, like, she's got a girlfriend too. But on the other hand, they're keeping a country together. There was it was a time when there wasn't a lot of divorces. It was World War II, like, in the thick of World War II, people are dying. Like, I understand why she did what she did, and it makes sense to me now. Because you would think, like, she should be throwing his clothes out the White House and setting it on fire and walking away, like Whitney Houston or whatever from that movie. But you have a whole country on your shoulders and children, and that's a lot.
It's a lot more complicated than just because there's a part of me that wants to be like, well, if you love each other,
why can't you be together?
You should be together. And then there's this other part that's like, well, there's a lot more to it than that. And it doesn't even mean that she and Franklin didn't love each other too.
Exactly, because I think they did. They did love each other. It seemed to be
a real partnership.
It was, and I think that's exactly what it was. It was a business partnership. It was a family. I mean, the Roosevelts were a big thing, and she didn't even have to change her last name because they were cousins.
They were already
that's a whole other universe. But it was a partnership on a lot of levels, and I think that he did respect her enough to realize how smart she was and put her in that public role. He was out having an affair and several affairs, but so was she too. So I don't know. I'm not condoning any of that, however, but I don't know.
It was as you get to know the people. It's a little more complicated.
There's so much gray areas. The older I get, the more I'm really understanding the gray areas. That there's no good people or bad people.
Well, and in the time frame too, could Hick and Eleanor really have ran off and just lived their life together?
Without inviting a whole ton of scandal.
Yeah.
Like,
They would have, they had no privacy anyhow,
Mhm.
really, but they would have had less,
Yeah.
even,
yeah.
at that point in time.
Well, and they were all of them were fighting this uphill battle, like you were saying, with the war and everything.
Mhm.
Hick was like at the top of her journalist game, and if she rocked the White House, that probably wouldn't have been a good thing
Mhm.
for
Right.
her.
Yeah.
And if Eleanor just started lighting stuff on fire,
Yeah.
then she wouldn't have been seen as the victor, like,
Mhm.
at all.
Yeah. I did respect that she resigned, that Hick resigned, you know.
Mhm.
Like recognizing that she wasn't really going to be unbiased
Yeah.
in her representation.
But she did work so hard to protect their family too. So I don't know. It was very interesting. I'm glad that I read it. There was some quotes in there. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I thought they were so beautiful. I liked. This is the first book of Amy Bloom's that I've read. Have you guys read Amy?
I have read previous Amy Bloom books.
Yeah.
I have.
I do enjoy her.
Yeah, there was a couple, like when they're declaring their love to each other in the beginning somewhere where like, you are my life's greatest surprise. And
Yes.
there's just some things in there that I thought were so sweet and so beautiful. And I so want those to be true.
Yeah.
And,
There was something, a quote from Hick in there where she said something, I can't remember now what it was, but it was to the effect of all of the things that she envied Franklin for.
yeah. Oh, that about broke
but it
my
was
heart.
it was about how much she loved Eleanor.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful and heartbreaking all at the same
It
time. But
was.
it's so kind of summed up.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that one. And then there was one about how she spoke about how Eleanor would make you feel like you were the only person in a room. She would
Mhm.
shine her light directly on you, and she would listen to every single person. And I thought that was really telling. I mean, no matter how poor or rich or whatever, she would listen to every person. I think that's important of a first lady. Anyone really.
Yeah. So, what else is going on?
Well, we don't have time for
All
all
the
that.
things.
Yeah.
But I mean, a big part of this book is, dealing with the duality of a regular life.
Mhm.
Hick especially was like, she was poor and she didn't have anything, and she worked her way up the ladder, and had a lot to deal with. But as a writer, I'm sure she was also a reader,
Mhm.
and probably escaped quite a bit. So what are you reading to
Sweet segue.
escape?
Oh, that's an excellent segue. I like that.
Outstanding. If I've been reading some heavy stuff, I like to cleanse with light young adult fiction. Not like heavy young adult fiction like The Fault in Our Stars, because there should have been more of a warning label on that one. But Harry Potter. when I need a cleanse, I read Harry Potter. It makes me happy. I always read probably 5 books at a time, so it just depends on what I'm in the mood for.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you have like a book for a certain time of day? Different activities?
I do. I'm a book polygamist,
Mhm.
and so I have. Not only do I have books for how I'm feeling, I have books for different locations. So I have my car book, I have my bathtub book, I have 14 books next to my bed. And I know there's 14 because my husband had counted them. And he's like, that's a lot of books. And I'm like, this could be heroin, so you need to back off.
Right.
He should be happy with the books.
Exactly. And I have living room book. Let's see, I mentioned car book. Obviously, I have store book, which is with the James Comey book that just came out.
Oh, the loyalty.
A higher
So-
loyalty.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm on page 97 of that one. So I have store book. I have purse book. I have glove box book, which is my emergency book. But then I also have purse book and I have car book.
Right.
Your book was kitchen book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because I have a long window seat in the kitchen, so I read it in the kitchen. And then, let's see, what am I reading right now? I'm reading one called Whiskey When We're Dry, which comes out in June. It's from an author out of Oregon, and he's the bathtub book. So
I like the title.
Yeah, you can have it when I'm done. It's really
Maybe I
good.
need that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like chapstick. You know how you have car chapstick and purse chapstick.
Right.
And you always gotta have something handy to
Yeah.
read.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So I don't know. Am I the only one? Are you a book polygamist?
It totally makes sense to me.
I dilly-dally. I usually have one main book that I'm reading, and I follow it with me everywhere.
So you're like polyamorous when it comes to your books.
Yeah, it really depends on what is happening. Like if I'm in research mode, then I will have books everywhere, and I'm like re-reference. Like I'll be at the library and go through like the reference stuff in the back as I'm checking out books, and I'll check out all the stuff that author used, and then I'll go back and forth. So that gets a little bit nuts.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually been on a reading hiatus, and I have not read anything in a month until yesterday, because I'm really, really, really trying to finish writing my next
I do need you to
manuscript.
finish that, so.
I'm really trying. I've been working on the same paragraph for 4 days. It's not going very well. So my mom was up a few days ago, and we went to the library, and I was there for 45 minutes and came home with 14 books that I don't have time to read. But one of them was Wires and Nerves, which is a graphic novel, and I read it in like 3 hours.
Nice.
And so now I feel like I've read something,
Mhm.
I got through a story, and I don't know what's going to happen with this book that I'm writing.
So, I read an article yesterday. I like to read. And Victor Hugo, that wrote Hunchback of Notre Dame, do you know how he finished his book? Have you heard that story? So, he had, his publisher was like, you have to finish this book. You are 6 months behind. You have to finish this book. And he kept, I'm assuming it's like the social media of his day. Instead
Right.
of farting around on Facebook, he was going out to parties and talking to people and bringing people into his salon to talk to them. And his publisher's like, stop it, like you have to write. So he took all of his clothes to where he only had a shawl, and he locked them away. And he did not go outside for 6 months because he didn't have any clothes. And he finished Hunchback like 2 weeks early. So I think you should just take all your clothes
off.
Sure.
and just lock them outside, and then you
Sure.
can't go anywhere.
You know, that's not too many people would complain. I mean, I don't live with
See,
a
no
lot
one
of
will come to
people,
your house.
so, yeah.
Because they'll be like, oh,
I'll come get your clothes and just take them away for you.
there you go. And we'll sell them in my books. I mean, yeah, whatever. That's fine.
Yeah.
So I just read that yesterday. Oh yeah, that doesn't include my phone book, which is when I'm listening on Audible, and my car book also. So I do have those too. Those are the big, thick books that I don't have time to sit and read. So
Right.
Hamilton, Grant, It. I listened to 44 hours. It was. So I keep that in my back pocket while I'm walking and stuff.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
'Cause you need I don't particularly like reading like on an app.
Oh, I
I
can't
like
do that.
holding
No,
a book. But when I'm in the car, like I need to be able to like.
See, and in the
Yeah,
car is where I
and-
listen to the classics because I'm trapped. So that's
You
how I
get
listened
through
to Moby Dick, which was a terrible book. I'm sorry. I really hated that. Slaughterhouse-Five, I really wanted to like. I
I
didn't.
hate that when you try to read the classics and they just.
I know, and I feel bad about myself. Like I feel like I'm letting the community down or
I've
something.
been reading John Steinbeck's East of Eden since high school.
You know, that's the only one I kind of liked.
I'm halfway through. I've been halfway through it since high school, and I get halfway through it every time, and then I just can't.
So listen to it in the car, because what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
I listened to The
Really
Good
good
Earth by
idea.
Pearl S. Buck, and that was fantastic. I really liked that one. So I did read a classic.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Well, and the whole reason I wanted Corie to come is because she listens to podcasts, and so I knew that this would.
I
go
do.
really
I am.
well.
I listen.
Are we
That's-
podcasting? Like, are we doing it right?
I think
This
so.
is- yeah?
I think
Okay.
so. Yeah. I think this is a thing.
Okay.
So.
It's all happening.
I'll have to listen to it in the car in order to really be able to tell you, because that is my usual car thing. It's
Okay.
like load up the podcast, get in the car. I get mad when people ride with me now because they get in the way of my listening.
You
So,
resent them.
yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
She has a look.
Mm.
She's like.
Can we turn off my podcast? So,
I understand. What's
Yeah.
your escapist reading? Like,
My escapist reading, I am so non-committal. Like, I read all the genres. I just read everything, and then I have no memory of anything. I have
So you can read it again?
Yes,
See,
but
I can't. I'm not a rereader unless it's Harry Potter or Wrinkle in Time. Those are the only two I'll read again.
yeah, I don't reread a lot unless I've forgotten that I read it in the first place. But I love memoirs and autobiographies. I like reading about small-scale farming, agribusiness, business of any kind. It's not real exciting for other people. Like, everyone else is talking about whatever the new, I don't even know the new titles because I don't pay attention, but they're, all excited about all the drama and the romance, and I'm like, did you know that we send most of our dark meat chicken to Russia?
Are you a hit at parties?
They love me.
When I read too much true crime, I know that like I shouldn't talk to others because I went on a huge Anne Rule bent and I read like all of them, and people would be talking and I'd be like, "Do you know that there was a serial killer like 30 minutes from here?"
Bring anything back to the killers.
Like,
no
can I
matter
just
what.
get my change? Like, it's just in Winlock. You should go there.
Awesome.
So what do you read to escape?
So having, a career that's centered around children who've been abused, like, I love reading things that are work related. I love reading about stories of perseverance and people who've overcome, but sometimes you just want the fluff. And so, like, honestly, I'm like looking at these books over here as we've been sitting here. I'm like, oh, I haven't read that, and and I really like that. Like, just not romance, but just stories about people and every day and just life. I discovered an author as an adult, Rosamund Pilcher. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Her.
Yeah.
I went through a really bad breakup many, many years ago, and a friend told me I needed to read The Shell Seekers.
Oh, I love that one.
And I did, and it was wonderful. So then I started getting obsessed with anytime I'd go into like a used bookstore, I would find one of her books. And she has this book called Winter Solstice. And I have read it no less than 13 times.
Oh.
And I'll give it to somebody and be like, oh, you need to read this. And then I'll buy it when I find it again and reread it again. And I'm sitting here thinking, maybe that's what I need to read right now. Like, go back and reread it. And it's one of the few books I've ever just read over and over and over again. And it's just a lovely story about people. And it has beautiful descriptions of the Scottish countryside and people sitting down to meals together. And it just sort of feels like it sort of wraps you up in a hug to a certain extent.
Aww.
And sometimes you just
that.
need a hug
You
from
do.
your book.
You need a literary hug.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you like her, read Maeve Binchy or Maeve Binchy.
I have read one of her books, and I keep forgetting to go back and get more.
Did you read Circle of Friends?
Yes.
Yes, I love that one.
It's wonderful.
Yep, that's the good one. They're all good, but that's my favorite one.
Yeah, they're just, it's lighthearted, and
They're just Irish fun.
Yes. There's something about it that, like, okay, like, it's not too cheesy and silly, but it's just heartwarming. And
Yeah.
true escapism, though, in that way.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, it's nice to read a book where everyone's beautiful and handsome, and like little things go wrong, but it always turns out fine in the end. And
Yes.
everyone stays beautiful.
Yeah, it's, the book equivalent of a Disney sitcom.
Yeah. I get it.
At the end of the day, everything gets wrapped up.
And see, I can never make it to the end of books like that. I need there to be struggle. Somebody needs to be just in the throes of being oppressed, and then they have to kick butt. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I read Vic James. What is the name of her book? Gilded Cage, which reminds me. I gave it to Allison, who you guys don't know, but anyway, it reminds me.
But she reads too.
Reminds me of kind of Harry Potter-esque, but the magic people have a deal with the non-magic people that they have to be enslaved for 5 years. They get to pick the 5 years, but then they're just slaves.
Can it be from when I'm like 0 to 5?
Yeah, your parents can sign you up. No big deal. Get it out of the way.
Oh.
And so I like books where there's a definite bad guy,
Mm-hmm.
and there is a definite somebody hates what's happening and tries to fix it.
I think that is escapist because it is nice when you can identify you
Mhm.
are a bad guy
Mhm.
and there's nothing else, there's not that gray area where like he's bad in your perception because of choices that were made and that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
but it is nice when there's like one bad guy.
And you
It's
don't have
evil.
to have that struggle of, like,
Yeah.
how am I really supposed to feel about this?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I like those. But although I tend to like the bad guys better than the good guys. I don't know what that says about me, but
So is there a book that you've read that's like the most disturbing book you've ever read or one that stayed with you?
Chelsea Kane writes, she's a Portland author, so
Mhm.
she's local to us, and she writes a serial killer series.
Mhm.
The serial killer is a tiny, petite, blonde woman, and she is just nasty. Oh, she does horrible things, and it makes your skin crawl, and it makes you want to put the book down and not look at it for a while, and it is fantastic.
Tiny blonde.
I'm gonna have to remember that.
I like that.
Yeah, it's the Sweetheart series.
Oh.
Sweetheart
Really-
series?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's dark and gritty and horrible, and I love it so much.
So I read this book a few years ago. My daughter's freshman high school English teacher gave me this book, at like parent teacher night, and I'm interrogating this woman about, well, what books do you have the class read? Like, it's an English class, there better be reading going on.
Yeah.
Right.
And so she loaned me the book that they were going to work through for the first part of class, and it was called like Unwound or Unwind. It's a teen young adult book, and it is set in this future society where it's post, like, abortion was overturned, and so it's how America responded to the fact that abortion is now outlawed.
Mm-hmm.
You can't abort babies. You can leave them for people, and if somebody leaves you a baby on your doorstep, you are legally obligated to keep it. However, if your child, if a kid reaches 13, during the age of 13 is this, between 13 and 18 are these magical years, that if things aren't working with your child, you can choose to have them unwound.
I've heard of that book.
And
Someone was just telling me about that.
It is fascinating. It's not,
Okay.
unwinding is not killing your child.
Right.
But every single part of your kid is donated out to other people who need those parts, so they live on forever. And it's been years since I've read it.
Uh-huh.
So disturbing. I still can.
So they picked the time when your child is the most monstrous anyway.
And that was what I kept thinking while I was reading it.
Yeah.
This is, on the one hand, every parent's dream and nightmare all wound into one, because
I was just talking
who
about that.
hasn't
So
wanted
weird.
to get rid of really any 13 or 14-year-old
Yeah.
they know, let alone the one they have to live
I
with?
can think of several that come
I mean,
they're not even mine. But yeah, that's a horrible age. I was a monster at that age. I would have wanted to get rid of me.
right. And in this society, it's considered this really, parents can identify a child at a really young age. This is the one that our family is gonna get rid of.
No.
It's very interesting.
That sounds
And
like my type of book.
I was just thinking, I can't believe I've never told you about it, because I really think you would enjoy it.
Yeah.
So it's either, I think it's Unwound is what it's called. It's
Interesting.
really gripping in that disturbing, terrifying kind of way.
Interesting. The one that stuck with me the longest was The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. The one where every year the townspeople kill someone, to keep their numbers down or whatever, and they throw stones at them. And it's just a completely normal thing, and they get excited, and it's a whole fun day of things. It was written in the 60s, I think. And it's a short story, it's not that long. But it was profoundly disturbing just in how excited everyone was. And then when you stop and think about it, that's how it was with guillotine, with beheadings. It was very exciting. That's how it was with
They used to do public hangings.
Exactly.
And not all that long ago.
No, they still do that in some places. And gladiators and lions and watching that. So we're not that far removed from that being a thing.
People do get really interested in it, and it's much safer we're going to assume that Denise only reads about serial killers.
We're going to assume that.
We're assuming.
Okay.
I feel better about that.
Okay.
better that she reads about that than
I know she drives
actually.
around and tries to find places to put bodies.
You know, she's mentioned
Corey's
that to
mom
me
is
too.
afraid of me.
Yes, my mother is a little. She always says, "I love her," but
But-
I'm.
Well, and so the flip side of like the public excitement of it, I just recently read The Giver, which I had. I'm like at that weird age where like it wasn't required reading when I was in
love
school,
that.
and so I just read it because I had someone who read my Adeline series, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, there's so many similarities. Not that they're like really close, but so now that I'm writing the third book in the series, I felt far enough removed that I could read it, and I was like, you know, they talk about this great escape, you know, when people are done and they have this whole video conference thing that shows all their life, and they talk about all their accomplishments, and then they go away, and it's weird because it's not like a public spectacle in The Giver. It's a very kind of quiet, like everybody's happy that they're moving on, and then you find out that, oh wait, no, it's kind of horrible.
It is a little bit awful, yeah. But on the flip side of that, sometimes when I think about The Giver, I think like how easy it must be and how good you must sleep at night when you don't have to make any decisions and there are no gray areas because everything's done for you. And you, like one person holds everyone's memories and emotions and all of that. Like, kind of would be nice to just go to
Every
sleep.
once in a while.
Yeah, to just be like, I do what I eat and I sleep and I go to my job and I go to bed at night and that's all I do. It would be awful, but it would kind of be nice. Just every once in a while.
Little,
like a
little
vacation.
emotion, brain, decision-making break.
Yeah. I do feel like The Giver sometimes feel like I'm the holder of everyone's memories and thoughts.
I think it's a mom thing.
I think it is too. Yeah.
It's like you're the hub of everything in your household.
Yeah.
And everyone is crazy.
Yeah.
And you can't be crazy at the same time.
Right.
No.
So it's not going to be your turn anytime soon.
No, because you have to remember all of the birthdays, and you have to make sure all of the cards are signed, and you have to remember all of the holidays, and then who has a field trip and who likes their crust cut off, and all of those things.
The important stuff like the crest.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah,
tiresome.
we this week we had a big debacle. I've been busy helping friends and family with stuff, so I haven't been home very often. And my son has it's the today snack, and he has a drawer, and he lays out each snack for each day of the week. And if he skips one, he gets really upset. And so my husband has been in charge, and they missed a day, and my son had like this huge meltdown, and we had to like totally revisit the whole snack drawer as a concept. And so because it's like, no, it's okay, you can just have a snack. He's like, I missed yesterday. It's horrible. Then I had to explain to my husband like the whole process, and
This is much more important than it might seem.
yeah. Like he's a little bit OCD. I know you don't normally notice it, but it's just, you know, it's the way it
But
is.
moms have to be on top of that.
Yeah. And I'm sure that dads probably do too. It's probably a parent thing, but I feel like
Maybe there has to be somebody in the house who's on top of those things.
right.
Yeah. By default, it's usually me.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've hit the end of our time slot. What with the network and everything that we're negotiating
Thank you.
with.
It's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Fit in there. Well, thanks for having me.
Yes,
Thanks for
absolutely.
coming.
This has been really fun. Well, join us next time because we will have another special guest and we will be reading, as far as I know, we'll be reading a book called Cringeworthy about awkward moments. And so I'll give you a little sneak peek. An awkward pause is a pause that's more than 4 seconds. Did you feel awkward? Because I really did. It was really hard.
I was totally wondering what you were going to do.
Yeah.
Like, what
If
you
it's
doing?
less than 4 seconds, it's not awkward, but for English speakers, it's 4 seconds. For Japanese speakers, it's 12 seconds. I learned that from a book, that particular book. Anyway, awkward pause.
Yeah.
Goodbye.